Here we are for a new episode, and today I'm going to Manchester to speak with Sukhi. Sukhi is an English communication coach, and he has a new course, Sound On, that is all about how to use music to improve your fluency and your pronunciation and everything. Because he has a very interesting journey. He studied journalism, graduated from journalism. So I'm very curious, Sukhi, that you tell us about your journey of how from journalism you became an English communication coach, and also this course about music. So let's talk about that.
Well, first, thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be talking about, music and how we can leverage it in English sessions and communication sessions with people who really want to get to grips with their communication skills in English, in their second plus language. So thanks for inviting me. I'm Sukhi. I'm from Manchester. I was actually born in a small town outside of Nottingham. So I was born in Nottinghamshire. So, I'm a bit of a Midlands person, but I've been living in Manchester for about 20 plus years. And it's my home, my adopted home. And one of the reasons why is, it's music scene. It's incredible. It's eclectic. There's such a wide variety of things on offer for every kind of genre and subgenre of music. So, that's one reason why I'm still here and I'm never going to leave. But I actually studied journalism, which, when I first spoke to you, when we were planning this podcast, it was so interesting to hear that you have a very similar journey as well. Going from journalism and then into teaching and communication coaching. It's an awesome reflection of, people using their communication skills and applying it in the English language world. It's so cool to have that reflected. So that was awesome. But yeah, I started my journalism and English course in Manchester. I got the degree, and, I've always been someone who has put communication at the center of everything I do. So, and you having graduated in journalism know exactly the same. How journalism focuses purely on communication, whether that's interviewing people, whether that's writing news stories, whether it's blogging, it's always communicating somehow, some way with people, with yourself, with an audience. So that's something I really loved about journalism. And one of my favorite modules was actually in the third year of the degree. And the module was music journalism. And I think that's what really ignited this insatiable curiosity. I couldn't get rid of it after that. And I was obsessed. Another fun fact, this guy who was the lecturer of that particular module, his name is Dave Haslam, and he used to be called Mr. Manchester because he used to DJ around Manchester in the 80s, the 90s, and he was part of the Hacienda, which was this nightclub which was at the center of the clubbing world at one point in the late 80s, early 90s. And anyway, so that was exciting for me. I was getting taught by this legend in my eyes. And yeah, I just became obsessed, and I chased that journalistic dream for a while. I traveled around the UK following this dream. I worked in London for a year. I even traveled to Bangalore in India and worked there for 6 months for a magazine, a music magazine called Rave. That was awesome. I did lots of writing, lots of music writing, lots of reviewing. I started getting sent CDs to my house. CDs, that's how long ago it was. CDs to my house, and was asked to review them. And what I did was started my own blogazine. So I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit, and I always know I wanted to work for myself. So I started this blogazine. Blogs back then were, the thing to do. And there wasn't really one for Manchester. So I used to blog about club nights, bands playing. I used to write and review them. I used to just do that off my own back and actually pay to go to these venues to write reviews, just to build up this catalog of reviews on my blog. And it ended up in it ended up with me organizing events, organizing music nights, collaborating with some of the big art galleries in Manchester, the Whitworth Gallery. This was ages ago, by the way, so about 15, 16, 17 years ago. And that was just so much fun, it was so much fun. And I learned so much through that process, not only about business, but communication, how to write, how to speak to people, and how to put yourself across in a confident way, how to approach strangers for a story. I was only 22, 23. That was quite scary at the time, but putting yourself in vulnerable positions. And I think I learned a lot from that mini business that I had. I mean, it failed in the like financial sense, because during that period of time there was this economic crisis, and it led to lots of journalism jobs being cut. And where a company had 10 journalists, they would reduce the number to 2, and these 2 journalists would take the workload of all 10 of the journalists, which I'm sure you probably remember that period of time. Is
and around that, no?
2008. Yeah, that's the year I graduated from university. So, and then all of the jobs disappeared. So I was doing a lot of work, without pay. And so I knew I had to do something else, but I really struggled letting go of that dream of mine. But I knew I had to, because for a couple of years I was barely making any money, and it was really hard. I was, asking family and stuff like that. So I knew I had to change, and I kind of fell into teaching, actually. My auntie used to host students, and one of them asked me if we could have conversations, and I was like, okay, cool. I had no idea what I was doing. I was definitely underqualified. I shouldn't have been doing that, but I did it without realizing. I recognize now I probably shouldn't have done it, but yeah, just that's how I landed into teaching from journalism, because I knew. And also I'm obsessed with English, so
Yeah.
I love language. I love playing around with words. I love, language is so beautiful, and it can be, you can express the same thing in so many different ways. So I love playing around with language, and that's what I've taken all the way through my career. Now, if you fast forward to now, so I worked at a couple of schools. I did lots of traditional teaching, general English, business English, exam English, C2 proficiency, conversation classes, things like that, grammar focus, vocab focus, traditional teaching. I loved my job. I have loved my job all along, because when you work with people, you meet so many interesting characters. But over the last few years, since going solo, the pandemic struck. I'm sure everyone's got a similar story, whereby I lost my job basically at the school I was working for, and I took the opportunity. I was very lucky and very privileged to be given the opportunity to start pushing my services on Instagram. I had no idea what I was doing 3 years ago. If I look back, I was just posting videos of vocabulary, not really knowing, but the most important thing was to overcome the fear of posting videos. So I was like, okay, just post something, anything.
Yeah.
Do it, even if it's absolutely crap. It doesn't matter, just do it. So I've learned a lot of confidence through posting on Instagram, actually.
That's also communication skills, isn't it? It's showing up, visibility, like the fear to be seen. It's part of this skill as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. And I think that's something which I use and leverage within my communication.
Sure.
Yeah. There was a lot of fear and anxiety over that. I'm sure you felt it too, right?
Totally. All the time, it's like what they say, like actors, they are always having but it's like fear turns into excitement as well when you understand it better, and it gets better. But there is always, and there are moments of like you feel overwhelmed from exposing on social media, and you need to have some rest from that. Or yeah, totally. I think we all will go through that. But
yeah, I totally agree with you there. Rest, yeah, that's a really important word when we talk about constantly showing up for yourself, and social media is like a job in itself when you work for yourself. But
yeah, it's marketing. Yeah, it's like entrepreneurship is so much work that you do. Sometimes people ask you what you do, and it's like, yeah, I'm a communication coach, whatever, but you're really an entrepreneur. So it's like 90% of the time it's about marketing, and it's about, yeah, creating content, and like, but it's like, I really like to think about it in a way as sharing value, you know, and having fun in how you find a way for you to do it that you enjoy. And you being a journalist by heart, it's a lot of journalism, but with the marketing aspect of it. But yes.
Yeah, totally. You're right. And, you know, through journalism, I learned how to be very concise with my words and how to be very purposeful with my words. So that's also what we, you know, Instagram is, love it or hate it. That's where I find lots of my amazing clients from. And sometimes I do hate it and that I'm part of that system, you know, but that's the world we live in today. And I'm just going with the flow. I just go with it. I'm like, okay, this technology is here right now in my life. I'm going to use it to my advantage while it's free as well. Who knows what will happen in the future?
Yeah.
So yeah, writing script, captions, you know, things like that, getting your message across so that the person can understand where you're coming from, can feel something from your words and wants to work with you because you are you and you're going to give them the result that they want. That has to come across in your word, and that's all in your words, and that's all down to communication, isn't it? It's all about being precise and concise and authentic. And this is my word of the year, authentic, because through Instagram,
it's a buzzword because it's everywhere, like be authentic, and it's understanding what it is a process. You know, it's not like you fake your authenticity. You know, it's a process to get there. It's a very personal thing, and you have to go through maybe years until you get there, or not. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's one of the best things about like communication is that it takes you there, because impactful communication is always about being yourself. It's actually about taking away what is not you. Yeah. So
yeah, that's a really nice way to put it. It's like unlearning a lot about how to put yourself across. Yeah, unlearning and then relearning how to be authentic. And honestly, I've done that through this business. I've grown so much through this business. I've grown to know that fear is what holds you back, like fear of judgment, fear of exposing yourself, fear of vulnerability, fear of perception, all of these things, which actually most of my clients go through. So, you know, facing that fear is really integral to building your communication skills, because if you're constantly held back by that fear, you're never actually going to overcome the thing that's holding you back. So yeah, Instagram has taught me a lot, and this business has taught me a lot, you know, and coaching and therapy and everything outside of this business has taught me a lot too. So bringing that all together is where it's led me today. God, that took me ages. Sorry.
No, I mean, it's, you know, this is Steve Jobs' speech that I really like a lot when he says about you can only connect the dots backwards. And now what you're doing now, it's like all the threads, you know, that took you where you're now. And it's beautiful. And to summarize it, it's a long journey. So I think that you were concise in a way, like it's a long journey to get you here. So there is this component. I think your heart is very much in the direction of music. No? So it makes total sense that you are creating these really original courses that you're offering, and one of them, Sound On, it's about the using of music. So I want to take us there. So before going more into all the use of how to use music for fluency, but I want to learn a little bit about Manchester music scene, like what we can learn from it, and like music groups that will be interesting in a playlist for people that want to improve their fluency, so that we can learn a little bit about, you know, for those of us who want to go to Manchester, that I want to go and like listen to that music scene. What some of the bands, some history you can tell us about that you learn as a journalist and now as a communication coach?
I was just speaking to you before this call about Manchester, and you know, and I love Manchester. It has a very special place in my heart. I am an adopted Mancunian. I feel like it fits my personality, and it's down to the culture. And it's not only the wider culture, but the subcultures that exist within the city. And whether that's to do with arts, literature, music, there's so many things going on if you look hard enough. You know, it's sometimes this city divides opinion because it depends on what you're looking for in a city, like a city break. It's not particularly one that perhaps, you know, like some capital cities where you can walk around all day and feel romanticized in it. It's a bit rough around the edges. It's a bit edgy. It's got this personality to it, and it's got like character, and it's charming, but perhaps it's not the prettiest, you know,
Yeah.
one of the prettiest cities. But that's not what I am here for either. It's down to the music culture. And when I was a student here, you know, there was so much going on, but I think a lot of it I learned after leaving university. You know, during university, I was just enjoying the music scene, and a lot of it for me back then was club nights. There are really famous nightclubs here. There was one called Sankey's, which was like similar to the Hacienda, and the Hacienda was, you know, this huge club in the world. It's kind of like, if we think about nightclubs in the world, like the Berghain, I hope I'm saying that right, in Berlin, is almost like the clubbing mecca in the world right now. There's many other places too, but I'm just giving an example. That's what the Hacienda was like. It brought people together from all over the world, and there were huge stars playing there, like Madonna, you know, and people like that. So yeah, there is that kind of rave culture that was quite big here. And but then obviously with the 80s, there was a mixture of rave and, you know, band music as well, and the New Romantics. And you had bands like, you know, the Stone Roses were massive. I love them. And the Smiths. Do you know?
I didn't remember they were from Manchester. It's one of my favorite
Yeah.
bands from the UK.
And Joy Division. We
Joy,
mentioned them too.
yes.
Yeah, Oasis, obviously, 90s Brit pop. So, you know, these really defining kind of acts, and really Mancunian in their expression. Like, they look Mancunian as well. They just look like they're from here. I really like another band as well, which they were kind of cool and almost funny, but the Happy Mondays.
Oh, Happy Mondays, yes. They are
Yeah,
very different sound from Joy Division, for example, like
yeah,
opposite sounds. So it's like the fact they come from the same city, you know, well, even Oasis, like it's very different. Like to me, Manchester, I haven't been there. I imagine it very Joy Division sound, yes. Like it's
yeah,
listening to Joy Division, the atmosphere, the industrial, the dance, you know, like that's kind of how I imagine the energy of
yeah,
Manchester. Maybe even more than the other ones, but it's curious that Happy Mondays, that's a very joyful, no, it's kind of more like punk or like this kind of ska punk kind of music. Yeah, so different. How does Manchester sound now? What is the sound of Manchester now?
yeah. I mean, to be honest, there are still lots of bands originating from here and growing from here, and there's lots of producers and DJs that come from here too. I think the music scene generally has shifted quite a lot, hasn't it, recently, in recent years? There's a lot of new ways to find and promote yourself, and, you know, it still has a music scene, of course, it's buzzing. There's always bands, and there's always local bands, and there's always world music as well. I recently went to, for example, a Moroccan, I think they were from Morocco, a Moroccan band, and it was amazing the kind of show they put on, you know, and it was only a small, intimate crowd, but it was cool. It's kind of like that. It's really diverse and still has a really great, you know, band scene, and still creates big DJs and producers as well. It's just really eclectic.
Okay, so for somebody that is a musician that is interested to find that type of synergies or that type of atmosphere, to creative atmosphere, Manchester would be a very interesting place, no?
Yeah, if you're into music and you're into culture and you've got an umbrella, you can come to Manchester and you'll be fine.
Totally. So in that
Yeah.
direction, there is something that I always think about. Like I have friends that are musicians, and some of them are really afraid to sing in English. I personally think English is such an incredible language from the perspective of communication and from the perspective of sound, and because of the phonemes and the vowels, like in Spanish we have 5 vowels, and in English it's like 17 or more with all these deep tones, and it's like an orchestra in your mouth when you sing in English. So I always tell them, try to do it in English, because many of them is like, yeah, but I'm not, as good at this, or how can I write the lyrics in a language that's my second language? But I think that there is something so interesting about the possibilities for the voice of singing in English that I will tell many Spanish musicians to try and to work with a communication coach, or to get yourself in that place of confidence. So that's a question that I really wanted to ask you, because being a music journalist and a communication coach is the perfect question for someone like you. Like, what would you say to Spanish musicians that maybe are watching or listening to us, that they are afraid, so they don't try to sing in English or start to do some songs, try with doing lyrics in English? What would you tell them?
Yeah. Well, this almost leads towards sound on as well, and the way that we can use music to powerful effect for communication skills in a second plus language, in this case English. What I would say to people who want to write in English is, I think the first thing, because obviously fear holds people back, and this is something that perhaps, this is my coach side coming out now, but that's something perhaps they would need to, if you do feel fear, it's something that you want to confront, because you don't want that to be holding you back. But once you take the first step past or into that fear, it does become easier. Being able to write lyrics would give you a chance to see how rhyme works, rhythm, of a sentence. It gives you a chance to play around with vocabulary, looking up synonyms, seeing how everything rhymes together. Also, the stress in a sentence of English is different from perhaps, people from Spain. We share 2 different stress languages. So that's another reason why I really want to use music in my courses. I find it so exciting that you can mimic one sentence in a verse and just repeat, mimic and repeat, and it's amazing what it does to train your mouth, right?
It's how actors do that. Like when they coach themselves for like dialect coaching or speech coaching, all of that. It's so important for me as a Spanish native speaker. I do that a lot. Like I create my own practices with music, with movies, things like that. And it's actually incredible how much we can learn from actors and singers and performers, because it's so much about performing. So that's something that I also wanted to talk about with you, because I think there are many musicians in Spain. They don't go out of their comfort zone and go for, okay, I'm gonna try to do it in English, because maybe there is an audience for you, an international audience for your songs, and you can try that aspect of you, like as a musician, but you're not stepping into that because of perfectionism, fear. It's not my mother tongue. I cannot but I do think that you can express yourself. It's just that you express yourself in a different way, So I wanted to know what is it that you thought about it, and also what you say about your course using music. There are many different things that, for example, I don't know what is your takeaway from coaching many Spanish speaking professionals or Spanish speakers, and I want to ask about that also, because my perception is that here in Spain there is not much like communication or understanding of how important pronunciation coaching is, how important it is to coach ourselves through the way English sounds, like the speech patterns, the connected speech, the phonetics. Maybe people coming from a more academic perspective, it's kind of an anecdotic thing, I know it for myself, like in my own academic training, never, train myself with this. This came after just doing it on my own, looking for things and like, this works, so I'm gonna do it. And I created my own ways. But what is your opinion about that? Like how, maybe the people that come for you from our country, from Spain, and do they know about pronunciation coaching or these techniques or imitation or understanding the stress patterns, or they are completely unaware of that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think if I think about people from Spain specifically, because there are so many varieties of Spanish around the world, but if I think about, people from Spain, I don't think even beyond Spain, I don't think music is really used to encourage empowered communication. And it sounds strange, doesn't it? You can use a song and you could actually feel or build on confidence by using music. And that comes from, like I said, for people from Spain, the rhythm of the stress of a sentence is different. So music is going to help you if you choose the right song. I think song choice is really important, which is why in my course Sound On, I've chosen 10 weeks of very specific songs which pick up on different rhythms and different aspects of pronunciation, because pronunciation is a wide umbrella term, and underneath that there's lots and lots of different variables to pronunciation. So we focus on different parts of pronunciation, like you said, connected speech, and then within connected speech there's more, that's an umbrella term for different types of connected speech. So yeah, we focus on that kind of thing, and that's what could help particularly somebody who speaks a language with a different stress timed rhythm, a different stress in the sentence, different sentence stress. Actually, I learnt and practiced pronunciation when I was learning Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese. So I had this mild obsession with Brazilian music, actually, which led me to Brazil.
Okay. So the
Yeah.
music led you to the culture and the place.
Absolutely, yeah.
What happened to me with the UK and Joy Division and the Smiths, it's like through the music you want to visit the place. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear too. I'm glad you like that kind of music. It's not for everybody, but yeah, I do follow music. Actually, it's part of a lot of the decisions I make in my day. But about 6 months before I traveled to Brazil, it was just a travel trip by myself about 8 years ago, something like that. I was like, right, I can't be that person, that English person who goes abroad as an arrogant English speaker. No, I'm going to learn as much as I can. And I did. And so I got myself to about a pre-intermediate level, or well, elementary to pre-intermediate, through an app. I just did it myself. Back then, apps were quite new as well, learning apps. And I got myself, and I was really obsessed with it. I had things all over the walls. And then I just started getting sent music by my Brazilian friends. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. There was one artist called Seu Jorge, which is like your George, I believe, in translation. Sorry, Portuguese speakers, if I'm wrong. And I mimicked his songs so much so that I learnt them by heart. But what I didn't know was the meaning of the words. So before I even started to think about building my vocabulary, understanding grammar, anything like that, it actually became about how does this language fit in my mouth?
How it feels and how it fits in your mouth.
How it feels, how it fits in my mouth, what I need to do with my whole mouth, training the mouth. And I did this instinctively, and actually it worked so well. When I went to Brazil, people would say, wow, I thought you were from Brazil, because apparently I look Brazilian as well. So they were really surprised by how I impersonated their pronunciation styles that well, and it was through music, and that's what I want to bring to this course.
Exactly. It's very curious because I remember when I was more doing communication and things like that, cinema, all those things. But I was very surprised how people here in Spain, they have quite very good fluency. They speak English very well. And I, you know, when I was like speaking with them more, they were all into music. They were all listening to a lot of music in English, and they were curious about the lyrics, about things like that. And you notice that in the way they spoke the language. So there, I think definitely it's this missing piece that I think is taking advantage of all these resources we have. And I find music is an incredible resource because of the listening. So going into, there is something you said that I really like, that you said that empathy is in the heart of listening. No, you share this sentence in one of your posts. I love it. So I want to ask you more about what is your takeaways on good listening and how we can improve our listening with music. It's more like, yeah.
Yeah, so empathy is at the heart of listening. I think this post came as a response to working with high-level English speakers for the past couple of years and listening being pigeonholed to fill the blanks, to circle the correct word you hear. Yeah. So really like almost unnatural kind of tasks. Now, of course, I'm not debating whether they're useful. I think for particular people, those tasks really help tune in your ears, and particularly lower levels as well, to get your ears used to listening to something. But as people become more advanced, I started to realize those kinds of listening tasks in my own classes for the last couple of years were not really inspiring this sense of being able to understand people fully in a conversation. I realized that I wanted to shift the focus from these typical listening tasks and focus more on the fact that there's a conversation happening, that there's connection happening, that there's this wonderful thing that happens between two people that we can't see, we can barely perceive it. There's a connection, you know. There's like, if you're physically in the space of someone, there's also like energetic connection and lots of things happening.
It is beyond. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And so I tried to shift away. And again, I just want to reiterate, it's not that those tasks are bad or, you know, you shouldn't do those tasks. Do them. They're very academic, very exam-like. But true listening comes from being present in a conversation and coming with curiosity and coming with empathy, listening to the other person's story and trying to stand in their shoes and really feel what they're talking about. What English speakers get stuck with sometimes is what they're going to say next. Like, and not only English second plus English speakers, it happens in our first languages too. I used to do this all the time because it comes from a place of like insecurity, like, oh my God, am I going to say the right thing? Am I going to sound right? Am I going to make myself look stupid? What if they think I'm not intelligent enough? I used to have all of these thoughts. And a similar thing happens with people who use English as a second plus language. So I'm shifting that perspective a little bit, or trying to, moving away from traditional listening tasks and thinking about how to bring yourself back to presence in the conversation you're having, giving that person your undivided attention. That's where I think empathy is at the heart of listening. And with music, we can kind of put that together, because all music does is kind of supplement the ability to recognize fast speech in other people. It's not only about mimicking and repeating connected speech, it's actually about listening and how you can better understand speech through music.
Yeah, and it totally connects you emotionally with the language, because it's all about I don't think there is anything else in the creative, you know, aspect of humans that is more like, it makes you feel something the quickest and the most intense than music. You know, like, of course, if you watch a beautiful picture, like a painting, you can feel something, or a movie, you know, it makes you feel things. But for me, with music, it's instantaneous. You know, I start my mornings dancing with music. I put Beyonce and I'm like, you know, I can do anything. You know, it's like whatever. It's like music is this very instant, like, boost of energy. Also, the lyrics is more like poetry. no, it's more like there are metaphors. It's different than, for example, if you listen to a podcast or if you are like reading a book or an audiobook. It's a very different format. For example, for me, hip hop, I like hip hop. So the lyrics in hip hop, it's so much rhythm. I mean, I think probably one of my favorite genres is soul, black music, you know, funky, and it's so much connected speech that it's like you have to practice. Like for me, it's like if this is a video game, hip hop is pro level, you know, and then you have pop music is like intermediate, and you have heavy metal goes a little more advanced. So it's regarding connected speech, you know, so you can really tune your ears into, for example, the way that spoken English goes, because for example, with Black American or Black American, they have more of that accent that goes in this type of music, but that aspect of the rhythm that is like they are singing. I always say, I don't think people speak, I think people sing. And what is your specific song? So the way of what you're saying about your course, it fascinates me, because it's like, what an interesting thing to select different songs, and like also intentionally, I want you to notice this about the rhythm, this about, I find it's fascinating and so useful. So another thing for people also listening to us, I would like to ask you, if imagine there are somebody listening to us that is, wow, this is such a great idea. I'm going to start doing it already. I'm going to start using music to improve my pronunciation, my overall fluency. What do you think are very quick tips they can use to intentionally use music in a way that is useful? Because I guess it's not just, okay, I'm going to put a song in the back and like let it play. Probably that is great. But what are some intentional things that person can do in order to take full advantage of this practice of using music?
I think someone's needs, so a learner's needs are very important. So perhaps if the needs are vocabulary, fine, that's great. But if the needs are you want to emulate, or you want to become clearer in your pronunciation, I would use the method that I tried. It might not work for everybody, but when I was learning Portuguese, as I mentioned before, I listened to a song and I just looked at one line. I tried to say this line out loud before listening, see how I sounded, and then listened, and then paused, repeated, listened, paused, repeated. I would do this 6, 7, 8 times with one line. This is like actively using music. Of course, you can listen to music passively and just enjoy it as well. Your brain's still going to be absorbing some of that language and some of those sounds, but actively, that's what I would do. Take a song and actively repeat what they're saying. That taught me a lot about connected speech in Portuguese, and also omission of sounds. Sometimes in songs and in languages, when you're speaking quickly enough, or not necessarily quickly, but fluently, we omit sounds, we delete them because they don't need to be said.
English is crazy. We know
English
that in
crazy.
Spanish. In Spanish, is everything is the way we speak is the way it is, like the way it's written. But all my clients tell me about that. Like English is crazy. Like it's the spoken English is a completely different universe, and this because we are like forgetting all the universe of connected speech and pronunciation and phonetics. That without it, you're totally lost. That's why people have they think that I have a great level. I can read all the articles, and then when they watch a movie or listen to a song or in real life speaking with someone, they get lost, they don't understand, they don't follow. But it's because of that component that you need to really train your ears, like a gym, doing exercises and practices, exactly what you are saying, like, for example, using music. That is such a beautiful resource, and also I think brings more joy to the practice. That is something that maybe in academic perspectives, sometimes we miss that, but in more communication coaching perspectives, it's also very important to align with the joy and like have fun with it. You don't have to do things that feel boring for you. It can actually be enjoyable. So Yeah.
Yeah, that's so right. That's so right. Exactly. Why does learning have to be boring anymore? It doesn't. You don't have to sit down in a school anymore and just fill in some grammar blanks, without actually using English, without actually putting to use all of those skills you're spending years on. Absolutely. If you really, really love music, like us two do, start listening to music, start recognizing those sounds, start imitating them. Another thing is when you repeat, one thing about confident speech is also projection of your voice. And, so the homework is fun. It's literally read this song and sing it to yourself in the shower and in your bedroom, whatever, dancing around your room, sing the song, sing it loud and proud by yourself and enjoy that moment. Music brings so much joy and it connects so many people, doesn't it? It's like a universal language in some way or another, despite the genre. Everybody in some way or another likes a particular type of music, whether it's classical, whether it's traditional music from your native country, whether it's, pop, rock, jazz, funk, soul. Everyone loves something, right? So yeah, I agree. It brings a lot of fun to the table, particularly with language learning, where it can become a bit dry and it can become a bit routine.
Yeah, totally. And that's the next thing I want to talk about, going into how you have evolved, because it's very similar to also the way I evolved. That makes total sense, because having a background more on communication, it makes more sense that we evolved from the more teaching approach, the more language learning approach, to the more communication coaching. That is very different. Still now for me, sometimes trying to explain, I notice how it's kind of a new thing. So that's another thing I wanted to ask you, like, what are for you the main differences of an approach that is more focused on teaching, and like it has its purposes? There are people that need that even more if you have an exam, if you're in academia, if you are studying a degree or whatever. But if you're a professional, I think that's what we target more professionals. It's a very different story, because then we talk about communication skills, so it's different than academic English, or like what is the purpose of people training for exams. So I want to know, what is your perspective about the difference between those? What you have evolved into a communication coach because there is something that you notice that is in the services that you're giving, this is being asked, like to embrace more of that. So I also want to know, what are your takes on that?
Like you said, there is certainly a place for traditional teaching and there's a place for coaching. There are so many amazing teachers out there, and I'll never when I talk about coaching and when I talk about teaching, I never want to make teachers ever feel bad. I think their jobs are amazing. I'm a teacher at heart. That's where my whole career has been, and there is a place for it. And perhaps also the way someone learns, they might require these traditional grammar lessons. Their brain might work like that, and that's completely fine. What I've recognized over the past couple of years since going solo is that working in majority with high level speakers of English as a second plus language, and actually at one point only high level English speakers, and that's the most ever, because at schools I used to have a very mixed schedule, low level, high level, etc., exams, business, etc. But working with them, I realized, despite how good their English was, their mind would tell them otherwise. There has been so many self-criticisms coming my way, constant. And I realized, it took me a while to realize, actually, because I was still doing the grammar, I was still doing the vocab, and people were not feeling, great after all of it. And I was like, well, what's going on? Why are you not feeling good when your level of English, you know more idioms than me? That's how good your English is, You use idioms that I've never used in my life, and it's my first language. So they would still want more. They didn't feel enough. There's so many different mindset issues that have propped up, whether it's perfectionism, whether it's pronunciation, not being able to speak, whether it's not knowing what to say, whether it's working in the UK and feeling intimidated in an English office. whether so many different things, you know, so many things came up and they weren't linked specifically to English. So that's where language coaching and communication coaching came from and has grown, and I'm evolving into it still. I'm still evolving into it. But I see the feedback has changed. It's different from, oh, I know how to use these 5 phrasal verbs now. And it's gone to, wow, I can get my message across and make mistakes. Wow, I can get a new job in another country or in an international company. These are things some of my clients have said recently, while not having the belief that they could do that. And that's where it's come from. So communication coaching is about how to use your voice in an empowered way. But it means facing, firstly, through my technique, anyway, through my method, it's facing those limiting beliefs, those things holding you back. It's like getting them out and getting vulnerable and feeling bad. It's okay to feel bad, but then let's question why. Let's have a look at why. Let's have a look at these vulnerabilities and cradle them and, you know, nurture them, look at them, observe them, and hopefully with the intent of letting them go. So then you can focus on sharing your stories in your second plus language, which, like I said, most of my clients can use perfectly well, better than me sometimes.
Yes.
In terms of like the breadth of vocabulary and stuff that my clients have used, it's incredible. So I was really confused why they felt that way, and that's where this has been born from. You know, I don't want people to feel so terrible about their skills when all it takes is sometimes just a little mindset shift, just a perspective shift, just to say, this is what you said. Let's take a look at it. You know, this is what you said about yourself. How do you feel looking at that? You know, that kind of thing.
Can you give us an example of a perception shift you remember that was really impressive?
Yes.
Wow, this is amazing what happened to this person with this mindset shift.
Yeah, there's one client that comes immediately to mind, and she was part of, so not Sound On, but another course I run called Speak and Connect. And I love this course. It's like my baby because it was the first time I branched away from vocab and grammar stuff, and I went into communication courses. So in this course, sorry, I've gone on about the course. I've gone off topic.
Yeah,
But
totally. Sure, totally.
in this course, we also focus on things like mindset, mindfulness techniques, communication techniques, tips, tricks, you know, things like that, as well as fluency, speaking fluency, but also listening, how to listen, what listening means, empathic listening. One of my clients was in Speak and Connect twice. So she did 24 weeks of this course. Plus she took one-to-one coaching with me. Coaching, I do a coaching and teaching blended kind of thing. So after she did about 6 months with me, which was quite intense, you know, 2 12-week courses, one-to-one sessions every week or every couple of weeks, she said she was now able to feel like herself in her expression. And when she said that, I nearly cried. I was like, oh my God. When she came to me, she was like, I feel awful. I hate my mistakes. I don't think I could ever get a job. Now she's in an international company. She doesn't focus on all of her mistakes all the time. She just gets her message across. And she said, I feel like I can now be myself in English.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
Yeah.
That's what communication coaching can do for you. Rather than saying, I know all the grammar points, you say, I can communicate with the world.
Yeah, it's a more integral like approach. It's about like, it's more on the identity piece, I think. It's more integral because you don't need all the vocabulary really. It's more about feeling that you can give yourself permission to just go and try and like, you know, improve and feel yourself as a speaker, because it's what, you know, I also think that sometimes there is a lot of misunderstandings about what communication is, because for example, for me, I evaluate myself as a communicator in how well I listen, because for me, speaking was always easy in a way, and it was about, oh, but I'm not listening very well here or whatever. So it's such an integral skill. It's not only what you say, the impact you have in communication is also the way you listen, and more in leadership. So many people that have to lead in English, they think, oh, I have to have all these fancy words. Is what you say, the idioms. Maybe you don't need the idioms. Actually, many times, when you're speaking with a native speaker, they should think about if using or not the idiom, because communication is this dance, and I think there is a lot of maybe misunderstanding of what effective communication is because of that aspect of, fancy vocabulary is great, advanced fluency is great, having a lot of vocabulary gives you, you're more articulated, it's great, you should grow that, build that vocabulary. But to me, communication is such an integral skill. That's what makes it so fun. So the fact that you use mindfulness, that you use all these things, that is what I think makes a great program, So it sounds amazing, the experience of this girl. Very happy for her, because it changes your life, the moment that you can step into working internationally, you're going to have new relationships, new experiences. It totally expands and changes your life. And it's a pity that you are not stepping into that version of yourself many times, not because of vocabulary, it's because of the fears. And that's where coaching can really help a little bit.
100% agree. Absolutely. I love that you said coaching can change your life, and it can help you see things from a new perspective, and seeing things from a new perspective makes you feel like a new person. And it's crazy just to think that, communication coaching can do that, or mindset coaching can do that. I really liked what you said before about native speakers and their use of idioms and fancy language and things like that, when actually communication is about adaptability. If you're speaking to someone in a global world of English, perhaps they have a lower level than you, it's on you to grade your language, so that they understand.
It's actually you who are not being effective communicator if you're using fancy idioms from Brooklyn when you are in an international conference in Prague. I don't know,
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense that you use an idiom from this specific neighborhood, because they are not going to understand you.
Exactly. And exactly same as slang, it's slang. Okay. The thing where I feel like that's okay is when someone's living and working in the UK for an extended amount of time. They're going to come across the slang, and they're going to probably come across idioms, and they're going to come across lots of Britishisms. So there is a purpose for it. If someone moves to Australia, they're going to need to learn some of the slang. So would I don't know all of the Australian slang, but the adaptability is really important. And there are so many myths about English, and listening, and that's something which I'm trying to bust through my courses. I called Speak and Connect a speaking fluency course, but what that actually means is a communication course, because there's no speaking fluency without listening. If you don't know how to listen, that's most of the communication gone in the bin. So this is something that we focus on in Speak and Connect, and it will be in Sound On as well, because there's a lot. In Sound On, communication is at the center of the course. Music is there to create the session, but from that it can develop into meaningful discussions about the very selective themes I've chosen. I think in the first 4 weeks there's going to be things like things about society that we can talk about, like toxic masculinity or freedom of self, and you can use songs to your advantage.
Sounds amazing. It's like maybe the lyrics, and what comes from there, and interpreting the lyrics, that you can also talk about things that relate to people's lives and what they are going through, because that's the best way to connect and to feel a language. It's like to use it to learn about yourself. And I think that, boosting that from conversations that can go a little deeper than the type of conversation you have maybe with a stranger in a bar. If you go deeper, no? So that's, that I think that is where great communication coaching can happen. It's when you foster those environments where you go a little deeper into the conversation, that maybe that person never has that opportunity, to go a little deeper in communication. And I think that is something that creates a great course, is that not really as much the theory, though that maybe is part of it, but it's how you foster that environment. And then the person can actually start sharing. And, so yeah, it sounds great. It makes me want to apply, want to join.
Thank you. That's really kind of you. And I'm really proud of it. And I'm proud of the courses I'm making. And, I'm happy with the direction this is going. And I'm sure you are too. We share a lot in common in our stories, which has been amazing to unearth and to find out about you. And coming from this communication background, I just want for people to be able to move forward in their lives without carrying these like attachments that they don't need to have. And if they do hold on to those, perhaps they won't reach where they want to go. Their dreams will just be dreams and not reality, and it's really that big. It really is. Like, people's mindsets hold them back for their whole lives. So yeah, I'm really happy there are people like us who can tap into a very specific niche, which is second plus English speakers, and moving away, and not because it's not the right method, but moving away from just teaching vocab and just teaching grammar and that kind of stuff. It doesn't incite confidence. It just and the cycle of vocab, it comes and it goes constantly. So that cycle is ever perpetuating, learning vocab. Okay, I've got a huge variety of vocab. Don't use English for 6 months to a year. That vocab shrinks. Okay, I'll go back to classes, build the vocab, remember the vocab, and the same again. And it just keeps happening,
It's a vice circle, or like a
vicious circle, yeah.
A loop that it doesn't seem to ever stop, and you get stuck. It's the feeling of being stuck.
That's it. Yeah.
Having the progress, and you don't see yourself making the progress that you're looking. It's curious because I don't normally see our niche as second language people. Yes. What I actually, and I thought a lot about it, when I was like getting clear about me as an entrepreneur, what is the type of business I want to do. And what I think about our clients is they are explorers, I really think more of adventure and exploration, and like people that want to step out of their comfort zones, and they want to expand their lives, and they want adventure in their lives, so for me, that is what somebody that is second language.
Thinking about this when we first met, how actually I recently found a new client at the gym, and his first language is English, but because we got speaking about entrepreneurship, he was like, oh, I need to find my voice in order to sell my products better. And I was like, well, I am a communication coach. Usually it's for second plus English speakers, but why does it need to be? People need this empowerment in their voice wherever they're from. It's just because I've evolved from teacher to coach, and still teach as well, within the coaching, that I say second plus English speakers, and I want to help that niche of people, but it can just expand. It's not only people who speak English or a second plus language, it's anyone actually who needs communication coaching. So yeah.
So we're gonna wrap up the conversation. I've been, I could be talking with you for 5 hours. Before we wrap up, the last question. I'm very curious, so people can know you better from a music perspective, can get to know you better from a music perspective. So if all the songs in English in the world disappear, we lose all of them, and there is only 3 songs that you can keep and like keep safe, what 3 songs would you choose? For the next generations in like lyrics in English.
To mind, so perhaps an artist or 3 acts, and one of them would be Amy Winehouse.
Okay, why?
I adore her. I adore the depth of her lyrics. I adore the sadness within her, because I think it exists in all of us. She sings about being so in love with someone that it breaks her. And I think we've all been there. So yeah, things like that, you know, and her wording and her voice. Oh my God, absolutely incredible. Like, I'm so sad she's not here anymore. And I think about that often. I miss her.
Did you see her live? Did you see her
Sorry?
live? No,
No, I didn't. And I'm so gutted. I'm so devastated by that, you know, and I think about it often. I watched another documentary about her. Anyway, I was
I
upset.
watched that documentary too. Amazing.
Yeah, yeah, incredible. I was obsessed with her. Another act who just came to mind is I love her album. I was listening to it yesterday, and she's Lauryn Hill.
Lauryn Hill, my first ever CD. It's
Oh, really?
the first one I bought with my own money.
Was
Yeah,
it The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill?
I love it. Yes,
Oh my God, I was listening to that yesterday while
an
walking.
incredible thing. Yes.
Incredible. I say the last one has to be a Manchester band, so it's going to be Joy Division. One of the best songs ever written, I think, was Love Will Tear Us Apart, but they've got so many more. So there's my three
Okay,
acts.
that's
Sorry,
yeah, I know it was telling one. So okay, please Sukhi, tell us where people can find you, where people can connect with you. I think that everybody listening or watching us will probably want to join your course. So how they can find you?
So you can find me on Instagram. The reason why I was looking down is because actually I'm changing my Instagram name soon because I feel like it doesn't match my vibe, because the current Instagram name is English.language.everyday. That used to be my account, and I used to provide English language every day, but today it's different. So actually from January, it will be English Coach Sukhi.
Okay, I'm gonna
Okay.
share that in the show notes.
Ah,
All the two of them, the one that
yeah,
is now working and the one that is gonna be in January. Gonna
thank you.
write that down so people can see which one is the one. Okay,
Amazing.
January 2024, new Sukhi, new Instagram name.
Yes. I feel empowered in that decision, and I think it's the right way to go. And I can see that it's everything that I want it to be. Also, I've got a couple of courses coming up. Like, if anyone hears this, Speak and Connect is an advanced communication course. It is for second plus English speakers, and it focuses on mindfulness techniques, how to allow your authenticity to shine through fluency, listening skills, lots of depth of conversation, lots of things you wouldn't have talked about before, really challenging you and really pushing you out of your comfort zone. And then, of course, the reason why you've asked me to come here is Sound On. Sound On is my new baby of a course, which starts in February. So just keep an eye on my Instagram, really. That's all I use for promotional stuff for now. You know, I've got a podcast coming. I've got a lot of things coming next year. So
Okay.
keep an eye on my Instagram page. You'll hear all the news.
Okay, so Sukhi, thanks a lot for coming, sharing all of your wisdom with us. It's been so fun. I hope to have you back soon, anytime.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you so much for asking me. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, I've just been rambling for a long time. So thank you for listening too.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye.
Yeah, thank you.